8 Japanese secret weapons technologies. After watching this report, you may wonder why Japan did not win the Second World War. Well, the answer is probably not all ingenuity and technology, but we are sure that with the amount of innovative and secret weapons the eastern country was developing, plus the fearlessness of the kamikaze pilots, they came very close. If you want to know more about what we're talking about, stay with us until the end of the video, and the 8 secret weapons Japan never used will surprise you. 8. Fugo balloon bombs. If you want to win a war and you have an unlimited budget, you probably think that the best idea is to develop more powerful and longer range missiles. But Japan saw things slightly differently. They designed a large capacity nitrogen filled hot air balloon. At their base, they hung bombs with timers on them. They would then calculate the speed of the winds across the Atlantic Ocean and direct them not at the targets you might think, but at the forests of the United States. When detonated, the bombs would cause fires of gigantic proportions, and this would help distract military troops and forest rangers. Unfortunately for them, it did not have the impact they had hoped for. Although the Japanese sent over 200 balloons, of all those balloons sent to America and Canada, the destruction and casualties these devices caused are unknown. But the strategy certainly looked promising. 7. Submersible aircraft carriers. If anything was in dispute in the Second World War, it was the domination of the seas. As seen at Pearl Harbor, it was therefore not surprising that the Japanese fleets had sophisticated, well-equipped submarines. Most curiously, their top loading could accommodate aircraft, specifically designed to fold up and fit into the submarine carrying them. But unlike the aircraft's carriers, the Japanese submarines would never wait for the planes to return. Their destiny was literally to crash into the enemy and take as many casualties as possible, and all with the utmost stealth, giving the enemy no chance of detecting them on their radar. HIJMS I-400 was decades ahead of her time. It was the world's largest submarine with a length of 400 feet and a surface displacement of 3,530 tons. Above her main deck rose a 115-foot long, 12-foot diameter hangar housing 3 torpedo bombers. They rode these float planes out through a massive hydraulic door onto an 85-foot pneumatic catapult where they were rigged for flight, fueled, armed, launched, and after landing alongside, lifted back aboard with a powerful hydraulic crane. 6. The kaiton. If you thought Japanese soldiers were all kamikazes and didn't mind dying, you'd be wrong. Many of them risked their lives on missions that they thought they would come out of unscathed, no matter how complicated. Such was the case with the crews of these 48-foot-long missiles. Their pilot had to steer the missiles towards the target and then pull out of it moments before impact. But in training alone, many of the volunteers were seriously injured. The pilot's quarters were rather precarious, a canvas chair in which the poor guy ended up exploding or drowning, so he decided not to use this torpedo, which was the most accurate way to hit any target. There is no record of a single lucky one being used. 5. Fukuriyu. Once again, we are forced to mention the self-sacrificing kamikazes. While they were suicide pilots, they were not the only ones who knew they would not return from their missions. The other case is that of the wearers of the fukuriyu suicide attack suits. These suits carried over 30 pounds of explosives strapped to a 15-foot high bamboo pole. The soldier wearing the suit would walk underwater, often for hours at a time, undetected. Once he reached his target, which was usually an enemy ship, he would attach himself to the hull and press the detonator, exploding it and blowing a large hole, which was expected to sink the ship on the spot. Unfortunately today, a very similar technique is used by terrorists and fundamentalists when they carry large quantities of explosives to detonate them near innocent people. But don't be too quick to praise the tactics and courage of these men. We really have no record that they actually used these suits in the Second World War. 4. Yokosuka MXY-7. Finally, it is time to talk about the kamikaze planes. They were not ordinary aircraft for a simple reason. They were meant to be destroyed like missiles, so their design had to be simple and minimalist. And they had to have weapons capable of delivering many lethal shots before detonating the 2,700-pound warhead they carried. Yes, it was more like a winged missile than a plane. Basically, they had to get there. take the enemy by surprise so he could react, and then detonate with an explosive capability beyond compare. With radar unable to detect them accurately and the sacrifices of the pilots, this type of aircraft was the most feared by enemy troops. 3. Flying tanks. Imagine if you were told that you had to design aircraft capable of carrying battle tanks. Well, you know how practical the Japanese are. They thought of small planes that take the body of a battle tank and basically turn it into a flying tank. And it seems strange to you? Well, just look at the pictures. You'll see that it doesn't seem so far-fetched. These tanks would not be launched from Japan or a much larger aircraft that would contain they would drop a nearby base. They could even land on water because they were equipped with skis and then moved from island to island. But again, don't get excited. They were never put into practice, so there is no record of them ever being seen in combat. 2. Mitsubishi J8M. The story of the Japanese Mitsubishi J8M jet was a curious one, despite its operational failure. It all began when Germany sold the Imperial Japanese Navy a model of its Messerschmitt 163 Comet jet fighter and its accompanying Walter HWK-209 engine. Having got these two valuable parts, the Japanese submarine moved them from the port of Lorient in France, from where it sailed on the 15th of April 1944 to moor in Sun Empire-occupied Singapore on the 15th of July. Once the cargo was safe, it was taken to Japan and examined by Mitsubishi engineers until the creation of the Mitsubishi J8M fighter. The Mitsubishi J8M was a rocket-powered speed plane developed near the end of World War II, and its name translates in English as sharp sword. Imagine the reason. The Japanese adopted this variation of German technology. The super-fast aircraft had a small nose and an extended fuselage and a large wingspan to carry a good load of ammunition, including a large ammunition payload. The Japanese had 6 versions of this rocket plane, which proved to be an important part of the Japanese military effort. 1. Hugo Death Ray. We know they base many weapons and strategies on science fiction stories. History is full of examples of that, but it could be the other way around. Maybe George Lucas was inspired by these equipment to build his Death Star after all. The story of his movie is inspired by a Japanese movie. During World War II, the magnetron laser beam was supposed to send a death ray to destroy the target several hundred miles away. This energy beam never worked as designed. Unfortunately, the calculations yielded nothing that guaranteed the beam would work, although it was initially estimated that the beam could have killed a rabbit at about 100 yards away, but only if the rabbit was perfectly still for at least 5 minutes. Okay, maybe it wasn't the most efficient weapon. You can't ask your enemy to stand still in order to kill them, but it would have been very interesting to see anyway. Well, we said these incredibly Japanese secret weapons would amaze you, didn't we? If you had to declare war on an enemy country tomorrow, what would be your best option? Tell us your impressions in the comments below. And please, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell. We upload material often, and it's the best way to keep you informed. Until next video,